Welcome to another NetOrca demo. Today we're going to take you through the NetOrca pack with the Universal Executor. So our core product, we have the consumer declarative process, which can scale up to thousands of consumer teams. We have the NetOrca declarative service owner and schema management layer. And traditionally that would create changes and service items, which would get executed by Ansible, Terraform, and Python scripts onto anything really. And then more recently we introduced the NetOrca pack, which was to say we can have an agentic config verification and execution layer, which runs off the back of any change in that customer request state. And the idea there is you could generate config, independently have an LLM verify it, and trigger a self-healing loop if something went wrong. And the way that works is you have a submission from the customer, a service item is created, and the change instance is there to track the state. Multiple LLMs are configured, so a bespoke one for config and verify. Then the results layer or execution layer would go off and trigger that to infrastructure, and then you would complete the change instance. Now, what we're introducing today is a universal way of doing that, because on those previous examples, we were writing custom Python scripts of being very bespoke in how we did that. So the question here is, if LLMs can generate specific configuration for systems, why can't it also generate the API calls themselves? And this is what we've created a standard pattern through with the NetOrca Universal Executor. So the execution basically receives a change plan, executes those, and we also support reconciliation, drift detection, and rollback. Now, the best way to explain this is it's basically an ITIL change process that's automated by AI. And you can think of the config LLM as like a senior engineer who creates the change plan. The verify engineers or a change board, they review it for accuracy and risk. And the junior engineer or a knock engineer that just takes that plan and executes it. And if there's any failures, it sends it back to the senior engineer, and that's the self-healing part. So in today's example, we're going to show you how that works with F5 Distributed Cloud. The distributed cloud layer is complicated to call. There's a lot of Terraform places to do this normally, and we're going to do this completely with the NetOrca Universal Executor. Now in this demo, we'll do a web app security for a front-end app, and we'll do an API security for sort of a back-end API-driven app as an example. So we've got our free backend apps here, and we want to put load balancers in front of them. So the apps do actually exist. Here's the front end, here's a backend API, and here's the second backend API. And we'll go to the NetOrca submission builder, and I've pre-configured the web app security and API security services. So we'll trigger them. We'll move to the distributed cloud team, which is the service owning team, and we'll see the changes pop up. Now, importantly, what's then triggered is the NetOrca pack. So that config verify execution layer is now triggered. The config call has been made up to the LLM, and we'll see what kind of plan it comes up with. So we see the config has passed, and we've got a description of the pipeline it's created. So basically, it's created steps to create a namespace on distributed cloud, health check, origin pool, app firewall, and then eventually the load balancer. And then it's gone off and triggered the verify layer. And while that's going through there, we'll go onto the F5 distributed cloud, and we can see that there's not even a namespace created for this. So we will be creating everything from scratch here. So the verify layer has passed. So it's got a full summary of the full execution plan. Every step it's gone through, and it's come up with a bit of warnings, some information. And here's where we go to the Universal Executor. So we take service item 216 and we execute this. And this is the junior engineer grabbing the plan, executing each of those API calls that have been measured out there. And that's all been successful. So what it's actually done now is gone on to execute the reconciliation plan. And it's marked that as complete. So we go back to NetOrca here. We should see that the execution layer has been updated. All the successful steps have been marked. A deployed item's been created with a record of all the resources that are there. And we're good to go. The change instance is completed. Now, this is an easier service than the other two, so it is about a 50-50 chance of working first go. But on this service, I'll now show you what happens if we create some config drift. So importantly, this Universal Executor we got running every 30 seconds. it's just going to keep going through those verification steps. And if we go onto the distributed cloud here, we give it a refresh, then we will see that the namespace for UE application has been created. We'll go to the load balancer and we'll see that it's already all deployed. So actually, if we go to the URL here, we will see that it's all good to go and it'll go to the front end. Perfect. Now what we want to do is actually delete that. So we'll delete that, and what should happen is the executor should pick it up on the next cycle. So the next cycle is kicking off in the executor here, and we see that verification that the HTTP load balancer exists has failed. And what we'll see now is NetOrca pack has been retriggered. So we were previously on pipeline 1, now we're on pipeline 2, and this is where we allow it to do the self-healing capability. Okay, so version 2's come back. It's discovered that the load balancer was deleted, and the config plan now has one post request to go off and create that load balance. The verify has said that that's safe to run. So if we go back to the universal executor, restart it for 216, we should see that plan execute correctly. That's done. Back into reconciliation mode. And if we refresh here, we see our load balancer is up and running, all good. So that's one of the services that will show as the demo, the front end. I'll post a link to another video where we'll go through the backend services, which are a little bit more involved. But just to finish here, we started with sort of the consumer declarative process, the service owner and schema management process, and then the ability to integrate with existing Ansible and Terraform automation processes. And now what we've introduced today is the NetOrca pack and the universal executor, and the ability to bring your own LLMs for each stage of that NetOrca pack. And really what this is about is using that config, verify, and execute layer to simplify how you take that customer state and deploy it to your infrastructure, both from a speed of getting that implemented scenario, and also an ability to adapt that throughout the lifecycle of the services. And by services, I mean any service to anything that has an API. So I'm really excited to see how this is used. We're trialing this with customers now. And if you have any questions, have a look at our website at netorca.io or talk to me on LinkedIn. Thank you.